All right, Nick, let's talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. Not a whole lot going on in the college football world this time of the year, but one thing in particular, Georgia is seeming to host a ton of players coming up this summer. And I think that this, in just a few days here, they're going to have a big event. And I think there's two targets at that event that Georgia is really gunning after. Let's get into the article and we'll talk more about these guys on the other side. This is from over on 3 Sports and says Georgia is set to host a major list of official visitors this weekend for its first big football recruiting weekend of the summer. That includes 3 5 stars, all from the Peach State, and each is a massive target on the defensive side of the ball for the Bulldogs. But 2, edge Isaiah Gibson and defensive lineman Justice Terry, are already committed to USC and have been since March. However, that hasn't stopped Georgia's pursuit of them, and in fact, it might have intensified their efforts even more, according to On3's Steve Wiltfong, who believes Georgia has a good chance of eventually flipping both of them into their class. Nick, I think this would be huge for Georgia. I think Georgia is the only team that can go after 2, maybe 3 5 stars in one weekend and have the potential to get all of them. I'm curious what your thoughts are, but Georgia fans, in the comment section below, of these 3 guys, who do you think Georgia has the best chance of flipping this weekend? And when do you think they're going to sign? Do you think any of these guys have a chance of signing on the dotted line for Kirby Smart? We know he's got the recruiting, chops to get these guys in. Who do you think is the first one to turn the tide? Let us know in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on these latest recruiting prospects for Georgia?
I know Georgia Bulldogs fans, you guys are probably tired of hearing about the comparisons to the Nick Saban Alabama dynasty, but I think it's warranted because you're getting to the point where you're on the same level. Everyone remembers the Alabama teams as teams that, the joke was they just had an army of 5 stars all the time. Everybody else was competing for the 3 and 4 stars, and Alabama just rolled up with a bunch of 5 stars across their entire 2 deep roster. And we're starting to see that from Georgia. This is what's really astonishing to me is that most programs, even major programs, big time, huge programs that say they're competing for national titles, most of the time they have like 1 5 star come in a visit, right? They try and set up their visits however they can so that way they can layer up and say, okay, this weekend we'll have 1 5 star. He's our priority. We got 3 4 stars. So the next guy's on the list and kind of so on, right? They try and be strategic about it, which makes sense. Georgia's the only program I've seen since that Nick Saban Alabama dynasty that was like, yeah, bring all the 5 stars. We don't care because guess what? Our program speaks for itself. Our recruiting efforts, our coaching staff, our pitch, it speaks for itself. We're that good. And the reality is the proof is in the pudding because they've been that good on the football field. They were the best team in college football last season. I know the loss in the SEC championship game kept them out of the college football playoff, but I think we can all agree if you look at the body of work, they were the best team, right? No disrespect to Michigan Mint or anything like that, but I honestly think if Georgia had played Michigan in the Rose Bowl, different story. But regardless of that, Georgia knows this, and that's why they can pull off these just ridiculous moves. And they can sit there and go, "Hey, USC, you're focusing all your efforts on defensive recruiting. You really like these guys. You got some commits. We'll flip them both." Right? That's just another level of competition that just makes it really hard for any program to get to Georgia's level consistently. And I think this is why they're going to be so good for such a long time. And we've talked about Georgia's ability to transition in terms of just a defensive only firehouse, a powerhouse into an offensive juggernaut, like we've started to see the past couple seasons. But they can still recruit like just gangbusters on the defensive side as well. And I think this is exactly what we're seeing here, right? It doesn't seem to matter who commits when or where. Everyone kind of always has Georgia in the back of their mind in the Southeast, right? We saw this with the Miami Hurricanes in the early 2000s. Someone would commit to Florida. They'd be like, yeah, but if Miami offers me, I'll probably not going to Miami. We saw this with Alabama in the mid 2010s, right? They may commit to Texas or LSU, but they may decommit and end up at the Crimson Tide. We're starting to see the same effect here for the Alabama, not for Alabama, excuse me, for Georgia. And look, this isn't the first time this happened. Wilt Fong actually mentioned that the same thing happened in 2022. USC had a few key commits, big time commits, and Georgia was able to flip them then as well. This is what Kirby Smart is doing. This is what he's done in the past, and it's the reason why they're once again the best team in college football.
Yeah, Nate, and the way you mention it and phrase it, I think it's very interesting because it does make sense. Most teams, they would take in 1 5 star in a weekend, wine and dine them, kind of, get them on their good side. Be like, hey, you're the only one for us. We love what you do on the field. Please come to Georgia. That's what normal teams would do. Georgia says, we're good if you want to be here. We're the best place to be. Like you said, it speaks for itself. Let's just bring all three of you in at the same time, and you can talk amongst yourself. Hey, this is really kind of a lot better than the last places we were at. Georgia is almost, having like it's almost like a competition aspect where you show up and there's two other 5 stars there, and whoa, I'm not the only guy they're looking at. I need to, get in there quick, or else these other two guys could be potentially the ones taking my spot. So I think Georgia, they're more dominant. They're the more alpha of the recruiters that we have seen in a long, long time. And again, like you said, Georgia has the body of work to do it. Who else can? We've said they've been doing great on offense, but then we look at the defense. What better to say, hey guys, you want to go to the NFL? Be on our defense. Every defensive player on our team, they have a first round pick grade in the NFL. Like it's been that simple. The last couple of years, you've been a defensive player for the Georgia Bulldogs. You're probably going to go in the first round of the NFL draft. It's that simple. So I think they have everything to offer. I think they have nothing to lose. And I think teams like USC are probably a little bit nervous that two of their top recruits are coming over. I know USC's done a complete overhaul of their defensive coaching staff, but the fact is, the proof is in the pudding. If you want to be somebody in the world of football, Georgia is the place where you want to be for defensive players.